Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. It's been a very busy week. Loads of things going on. We have a few things to talk about and a few things to catch up with. Our guest on the show is a lady called Maria Wheatley. Now, Maria came on to OYM for about 15 minutes before the Basis conference just to tell us what she would be talking about at the conference. And unfortunately, things didn't go according to plan. There's a few technical issues there. But we'll catch up with Maria and we'll have an interview with her tonight and have a chat with her. And maybe we can find out what her talk was going to be about, and we can talk about bits and pieces. Because we had a great 15 minutes with Maria initially when she come on at OYM, and we said, we'll have to get Maria back and do a full show with Maria. So it's brilliant that we have her on the show tonight, and we'll go into detail about a few bits and pieces. But before we crack on, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, thank you, Mary. The OYM chat room can be found at oymradio.com. You will see the link, all the links on the left-hand side. You will see the one for the chat room. You can log in there if you have registered, and you can chat amongst the people already in there, or you can pose questions for Maria this evening. We also have People's Internet Radio chat room. Going to monitor that as well for your questions. And also a big hi to everyone logged into both of the chat rooms. We also have the links on the website, of course, the links for the YouTube, the Twitter, the Skype, the anti-social media, Facebook, and a lot of information there as well, and also podcasts. And the most important one there is the link to the email address, info@oymradio.com. As usual, if you're a first-time listener or a long-time listener and you want to just fire us off a quick one-line email just to say hi, we really appreciate those emails, just to know who's tuning in and where you're tuning in from. We also have on the website as well a link for the TuneIn or Radio Link application. That's a free app for your smartphone or your iPhone or whatever you want to put it, and you can listen to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, now, we have a few things to talk about, and Steve is going to kick us off on our list.
Yes, the Las Vegas shooting, we're just looking at problem, reaction and solution to Hegelian dialect. More events are going to happen and be out in the open, it says. To get martial law, they need to get the guns off the people, so events like Las Vegas are going to become more common to try and get the people to demand that gun laws are changed. The elites are desperate for money, and apparently they have already set up a GoFundMe page. Do not fund any of these, it says. The money will not go to the people.
So the idea is that they want to keep pushing the problem, reaction, solution, and guns kill people. No, people kill people.
Yes.
And they want to bring in martial law. And the idea is that they have to get the guns off the people first. And when you get the guns off, then the martial law will come in. That's what you want to do. And obviously there's debates out there. Why does certain people have to buy automatic guns and stuff like that? I mean, I do agree. There should be maybe there should be some kind of system in place that it makes it a little bit harder to get guns, but not take the guns off the people. I mean, in Ireland you can get a gun, but you have to go through certain stringent systems and processes before you get a gun.
I have to meet some guy behind a dark alley.
Right, yeah. Give him a few quid. So there are kind of procedures you have to go through, and maybe in the States should be the same thing. That there's certain procedures that you need to go through, but not ban guns, because as soon as they do that, the elites will bring in the martial law, so we have to kind of stop that from happening. But that's the problem, reaction, solution. And again, the elites are struggling for money. Excuse me, I still have that little tickle in the back of my throat. The elites are still struggling for money, so obviously the GoFundMe pages are one way that they're trying to get money, and that money won't go to the cause, so just be aware of that. The other thing that's happened, that's going on as well, is the Catalonia in Spain. And they've kind of found out the hard way that they actually only have democracy when the government say they do, and when the referendum benefits the government and not the people. What would happen if we did the same thing in Ireland? Would they ignore the people? Well, we know our government have been ignoring the people. And if we all marched in Dublin and went down to O'Connell Street in our hundreds and thousands and said we want another referendum and we want to have reinstate 48 direct democracy, would they do it? Would they listen to us? I don't know. I really am seeing just, how this system is so, like it's cesspit of corruption. With politicians, even politicians who are not part of the corruption, they can see it. They know what's going on, but they don't want to say it because they're feathering their own nest. And voting, forget about voting. Seriously, if you haven't got to the stage now that you realise that voting doesn't work, then I don't know what to suggest. I don't vote. I'm not going to be voting ever again because it just doesn't work. It just doesn't benefit anybody. It only benefits the government because they give us that as a kind of perception that it makes changes and that we have control. We don't. It's been the same since 1922, since the foundation of the state. And voting doesn't do anything. It just appeases the crowd so they don't get up in arms and they don't fight back. I don't think anyway. That's my opinion. So I don't waste my time with voting anymore. And I don't know about how everybody else feels about it, but I've seen no difference in all the years since I was in Ireland and I left Ireland and I come back to Ireland. It's the same thing. Nothing has changed, and nothing has changed because they keep the same system in place. Different faces, same system. So, anyway, Steve, over to you.
Yeah, we have some information in from the journal.ie. It says Gardaí will soon have to ask a judge if they want to access your data. A report was commissioned last year after the accessing of a journalist's records. Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan said he does not have access to the figure of how many journalists have had their data intercepted under the 2011 Retention of Data Act. Announcing today that he is to overhaul the law, he said the Gardaí and any state agency will soon be required to go to court before accessing any citizen's data. The minister admitted there were difficulties with the 2011 legislation, but would not go so far as stating that it was unconstitutional. Okay, that's quite interesting.
It is, yeah. Well, again, we just have to keep an eye on what's going on with the judicial system, and just report on what's going on people find out. How's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's been fine. A few bits and pieces. You really want to take some of that cough?
I do. I know. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Like a shotgun.
sorry for the cough, folks. Yeah. It's hanging on. It's going, but it's hanging on.
If anyone has any recommendations or suggestions how he can get rid of this cough, pop it on a postcard and send it to OYM. Anyway, yes.
And don't say a noose.
Well, a noose would stop it. In its tracks.
Yeah. A guillotine, yeah.
You'd be doing your man. What's your man's name now? In excess. Yeah, you'd probably go like him.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, what have we got to report? I have a ticket here for a car. It was in a draw for a car. I didn't win it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Stephen Hawking's.
Yeah.
Good old Stephen Hawking's.
Yeah. I used to drink with his sister.
I heard you went out with her. Anyway, yeah, Stephen Hawking's. Everyone knows Stephen Hawking. And seemingly... That was Alan, not me. Okay. Anyway, yeah. It's Sunday Night Live. Yeah. Right. Anyway, yeah. Stephen Hawking. Seemingly, he was diagnosed with a degenerative muscular disease in 1963. Now, the short name for the disease is ALS. I don't have the proper pronunciation here, so I won't even attempt. With ALS, and seemingly anyone who develops ALS is normally dead within 2 to 3 years. He was actually given 2 to 3 years to live, they said, back in 1963. And a lot of people, again, this is just kind of food for thought, entertain it, throw it around and see what you think. But some people are starting to say now that the Stephen Hawking that we see today is not the same man who we seen all those years ago. Seemingly he has gone through some changes over his lifetime. Like his hands, seemingly back in the very early days, his hands were really kind of they weren't in good condition, put it that way, and they were very pliable or bendy or whatever the hell the word was. I cannot remember. But they're saying as he's aged, his hands seemingly are getting better when they should be getting worse, and even his facial expressions. They're saying that when you see kind of videos of him over the years, it doesn't even look like the same man. Whatever's going on there, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is not. I'm just saying I just came across this on the internet and it was kind of interesting. You any views on?
Well, no, I've seen the story of Stephen Hawking, and it's quite interesting. His life, he married and he had kids and stuff like that, and then obviously he had ALS kicked in. But the rumour is, as you say, Steve, is that he is actually not Stephen Hawking. You know. Yeah. So is it true? Is it not? I don't know.
Well, from what they're saying, that you know the way he talks through a computer. They're saying that he himself is not talking through the computer. That someone else somewhere else, possibly NASA or who or whomever, is actually programming this computer, and he's just going to sit there. He's like a puppet. Or a showpiece, I suppose. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe. What else we got? We have... my brother sent me over a video. I don't know if he's listening tonight. Mark, if you're listening, thanks for that video. It was quite interesting. I will try and get a link and pop it up. But it was about a chap, and he's kind of going through different scenarios of people and kind of timelines. And like he talks about when your number's up, and it's going to get you, you know, somehow. Like one of the stories was a man was out driving on a highway in the US of A. There was no other vehicles, none whatsoever on this highway. It was 2:45 in the AM, and he was going from A to B, and an airline pilot had trouble with the plane, and the plane had to make an emergency landing on the highway. Bear in mind, there's no other cars on it, only this car. But when the pilot made the emergency landing, he landed on this car, killing the driver. No one else about. And it's kind of stories like that. They're saying, like, you know, kind of, you know, if you're meant to be in a certain place at a certain time, you will be there, and you know, the universe will kind of engineer things to make sure that you are there. And if it doesn't get you on the highway, it'll get you somewhere else. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I'll try and get the link and I'll pop it up in the chat room before the evening is over, because it's kind of scary at the same time.
Well, it goes into the holographic world that we're in an actual program. Now, I'd seen your man Neil Tyson, or Degree Tyson, whoever his name is, the NASA astronomer. I think he's an astronomer, a scientist anyway, and he was talking to Katy Perry, believe it or not, about these multiple dimensions. And what in one, in another, but there has to be the initial one, and then that created the others. And it's just quite interesting that he was saying the same thing.
Yeah, and Katy Perry seems to be kind of old. We'll have to get her on the show.
Yeah, okay. Don't hold your breath.
No, okay. What else we got? RTE, Radio Television in Ireland, the state broadcaster, the mouthpiece for the government, as we know them fondly. Well, seemingly anyone who has RTE on the island of Ireland will know that you can get it free with a little small antenna on your roof called Serview, Ser being the Irish word for free. So you can get it that way, and if you have a digital tuner on your TV, you tune it in and it's there, and it's free no matter where you are. And if you're in an area that you cannot avail of the free view, Serview, you can get what's known as Sat, which is, it's not on it's different to Sky, to the 28.3 or 28.2 degrees east satellites. It's another satellite there, and you can get the kind of the Serview service on the satellite. Now, what they're saying is now, it is available also through Sky. If anyone subscribes to Sky TV, you can get RTE there, but you must have a valid subscription. Now, the Irish state broadcaster RTE have recently announced that they want now, again, sorry, it needs to be known that if you reside outside of Ireland, like you're in the UK or somewhere else, you cannot get RTE. So you can really only get it on the island of Ireland through Sky as one of the outlets. But RTE now want Sky to pay them. I can't remember what the figure was. It was a lot of money, but they want Sky to pay RTE for the service that they provide. And one of the ministers said that they're probably going to try and bring in legislation to force Sky's hand to pay for the service. Sky have said there's no way on God's green earth that they are going to pay for a service that's free, because it's subsidised by the likes of the TV licence and stuff like that.
But RTE want to change the legislation.
Yes.
It's funny how when it suits them.
Yeah, and RT also, seemingly one of their representatives, I can't remember the lady's name, but she said that RT is such a good service with excellent value for money that she's considering doubling the license fee. I believe the license fee at the moment is 160 something euro. So they're considering possibly doubling that as well. So if they were allowed to double that, well, obviously a lot of people wouldn't pay it anymore.
160, I think it is.
Yeah, so some people would not pay it, and then if they were to go and get Sky to pay them for their programming as well, geez, they'd be laughing, wouldn't they? Reeling it in. Yeah, down with that sort of thing. Anyway. If you have any more information on that, do let us know. We're always interested in seeing what RTE are trying to do. And the last thing on my list is watched a couple of videos last night of Jim Carrey. Seemingly the artist known as Jim Carrey is no longer. He's gone. He's gone bye-bye. And his reincarnation, well, not really, but he's shying away from all what he used to do. And now he's kind of coming out and he's reinventing himself, and I think he's kind of more spiritual now. He's realizing that he's on a path, he's on a journey. So obviously Jim has had his awakening. Now, how far he is down the road, I'm not sure. I don't know if he's on the same path as we are, but we might. Let's get him on the show as well. So
there's another one on the list.
Jim Carrey, Katy Perry on the show. Yeah. There we go. That's my week.
Okay.
Yes. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just a couple of things before we bring Marie in. On the list now, I'm actually in the process of getting rid of my old banger and getting a new banger. And one of the things that we're all familiar with is the fact that when you buy a car, or a new banger in my case, the car tax on the car I'm going to be buying has run out of date for 3 months. And apparently what you have to do is obviously fill out the logbook and you send the logbook away, and then the logbook comes in, and then that allows you to tax your car. So in the meantime, you're driving around the new car with no tax disc on it. And I spoke to the motor tax office during the week, and they said, oh yeah, most guards are fine. They understand the story. It's a new car and everything else. And I said, yeah, that's most guards. I said, not all guards. You're going to get your dirty Harry guard who tries to and intimidate you or try and do something. Maybe you just make it hard for you, even if they stop. Even though that's the system, they can, be awkward. And I said, but what if they decided to pick up, say to you, we're taking the car off you, you've no car tax. Now, obviously, I'd kind of say no consent and all that kind of stuff. But for people, how about an elderly couple or an elderly man or somebody who's not familiar with the system? And the guard says, well, you've no tax, and that's the law, and I'm taking your car, even though it's a new car, daddy-dan. And the motor tax office said, well, there's nothing we can do about that. You'd have to go to court, but the judge would throw it out. No judge would tolerate that. So I kind of put up the idea on Facebook, and I put it out there. What if on the logbook they had kind of a tax disc option as well, where it had a new vehicle ownership on it? And I know people are going to be saying, well, it's all registration and it's the law, and you don't want to be paying the system and all that. I'm aware of all that stuff, but we live in the real world, and there's bigger fights to fight. So you get the tax disc off the logbook and put it in. It has new vehicle ownership. So when the cops see it, they can kind of say, okay, if it's a new vehicle and you have the proof there because it's off the logbook, so that's fine, move ahead. Because there's a grey area there with the police. And I personally don't like the idea of that grey area where a guard could actually make it awkward for somebody when there's no need to, because the system is inadequate, because it hasn't actually considered sorting out that problem. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I sent the idea into the motor tax office, to the department that make decisions, and I suggested it to them that maybe they should do something like that just to kind of alleviate that problem. So we'll see what happens anyway. And the last thing on the list before we get Maria in is, now we all heard about the energies changing. And we heard that we're moving into the new earth, and Gaia is changing. Now, apparently, anything that is not natural or organic will not be going. Now, I have a theory about the vibration of food, and I mentioned this to Steve. Now, it's only a theory, and it's subjective for now, as I've no evidence to prove it. But basically, if it's only natural and organic stuff that are going to be moving into this new earth, if you want to call it that, or Gaia, is that why a lot of people are experiencing problems? They say our stomach is our second brain, And a lot of people are experiencing digestive issues with food. And we know that there's crap food out there. You know, we talked about Silent Green, the movie. People should watch that. And that we're not really eating food. There's no protein or anything in it. And of course, you know, I mentioned on the show about I grew carrots, and I had the carrots, and they tasted lovely. You could smell them and everything else. So my theory is it a case that what we should be eating is natural organic food that is obviously vibrating on the same frequency as we are, and the problems that we might be having regarding digestive issues could be because the food we're eating is just not food. It's on the wrong frequency, and our bodies are kind of rejecting it or causing problems in their stomach. Now, as I say, it's subjective information. I've no proof on it, but I just have this feeling that, you know, if it's natural or organic food, fruit and veg and all that, that's all fine. But when it comes to the old processed food and all that food that's not good for you, that's where the problem is, because more and more people are suffering from digestive issues with stomach, IBS and all that kind of stuff. I'm hearing a lot of it. And as our stomach is our second brain, it's very important that we have to get that right. So it's just, if you have any information on it, or you've come across anything that confirms what I've said, give us an email, send it in to us, and we'll have a look at it, because it'd be interesting if that is the case. Because there's a lot of talk about that, about moving to the new earth, and everybody's talking about it, and vibrations and frequencies and stuff like that.
So does that mean if you vibrate on the same frequency as a cabbage, you're a cabbage?
No, definitely not. But there are a few people that can be classed as cabbages. Most of them work in the dole. But anyway, let's move on. Before we bring Maria in, let's get a rundown of Maria's bio.
Okie dokie. Maria is a second-generation dowser who was taught by European Master Dowers, her late father and Chinese geomants. Maria is a leading authority on geodetic, earth energies and ley lines. Maria is also an accomplished author of books on sacred sites and dowsing. She has continued her late father's dowsing research into the esoteric design, canons of prehistoric sites, Druidic ceremonial enclosures and the Knights Templars church and cathedrals. Maria has studied Neolithic Britain and Bronze Age prehistory with her University of Bath and alongside other professionals. Maria combines her knowledge of archaeology and earth energies with state-of-the-art equipment to locate, detect and intercept the hidden frequencies that the earth emits. Her findings challenge our understanding of sacred sites. She is an expert on analysing and locating earth energies at sacred sites across the UK and Europe. Maria has also written holistic diploma courses for private colleges, and she runs esotericcollege.com, which offers certified courses on holistic subjects including past life regression, Druid soul star, astrology, tarot and dowsing. Maria teaches advanced dowsing techniques which are not taught anywhere else in the world, and Celtic Feng Shui. We have links to the websites which we will put up on the chat rooms as soon as possible.
Brilliant. How are you doing, Maria? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm very well. Glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for coming on. We had a chat just before the show, and you told us that there's a few technical problems at the Basis conference, and unfortunately never got to do it. So let's, I know you're going to be doing stuff with Miles, but then this is a great opportunity to talk about maybe what you wanted to talk about on the conference as well, you know, which is brilliant. So before we get into anything, is there anything you want to add to your bio at the moment that we just read out?
No, but there is something I would like to add, because you're on about, you know, the stomach being the second brain, and it's how we grow food, and it should be organic, quite rightly so. But that's a really good intro into some of my work with earth energies, actually, because the ancients said that the earth currents were affected by planetary motions of the sun and the moon and the planets, which affect the fertility of the earth, which affect the soil of the earth. And with a lot of tests done long before John Burke's book, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, which looked at placing seed into areas that were like sacred sites, mounds, stone circles. When you place the seed in it, let's say for 20 minutes, and then you grow that seed, it becomes twice as strong and grows twice as fast. So I don't just think it's about growing it organically. I think it's about the use of the seed placed in an electromagnetic environment like at an ancient site, and then growing it in close proximity to earth currents and underground water to produce better food. I mean, and this was actually, really studied by, I think it was W.H. Fisher of the National Center for Atmospheric Research of Boulder in Colorado, going back to the 70s. It could have even been the late 60s actually, where they placed green tomatoes into an electromagnetic field, which is earth energy basically, or a ley or something like that, and found that the green tomatoes became ripe 4 to 6 times faster than under normal conditions, and seeds of various variety of plants grew faster than usual. So not only can we have organic food, we can produce it in a manner that is completely holistic from the get-go.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, what we were saying to people over the last couple of weeks, as I've said in the show, I've started to, I'm no green fingers, but I've started to grow my own food. I think, Steve, your BA is doing it as well. Your wife's doing it as well, isn't she? Oh, she did. She did.
We did it before. Not very successful. Not as successful as you.
Right, okay. Well, look, all I did is I built a raised bed and I put in spring onions, carrots and cabbages. And the carrots, although they're small carrots, we had them there last week for dinner, and they just tasted so much better, and they smelled, you could smell them, where if you buy the kind of fruit and veg from Super Value or Tesco's, you can't smell anything. They're just like, they're flavourless, basically. So I think what we have to do as part of these energy changes is people need to start to grow their own food anyway, because even though we're buying fruit and veg in the chain stores, are we really getting fruit and veg? Is that, because I was, funny enough, the guest that we had on last week, she was a hypnotherapist, and she was, had a client, and the client was talking about the new earth, and the client was saying through Gaia that even though we're buying this food, which is fruit and veg, in the chain stores, it's not really good stuff. It's not good food. We need to be growing it's dead food, yeah. We need to be growing our own food. That's the only way we can guarantee that we're going to get good quality food into us.
Well, absolutely. And I think, the ancients were very, very aware of this, because they realized that, for example, it wasn't just the sun and the moon that would affect planetary growth. It would be the positions of the planets. And they drew up things called the planetary hours, for example. And they focused a lot on Jupiter at ancient sites for food production. And which is like the first hour of Jupiter is always on a Thursday, which Jupiter governs, for example. And they would really kind of link in with the planets and have living food. I live in a rural area not far from Avebury and Stonehenge. And do you know what Monsanto do now? As if the sun can't turn wheat or barley golden, they spray it about 7 times now. And the last spray goes on to the crop to ripen it. That's the dead food that people are living. It is drenched in Roundup. It's awful. So you're right, we really have to go back to basics. But to get into a new earth, to get into Gaia, we have to understand Gaia's natural energies. And some of these energies relate to underground water that is produced independent of rainfall, which I've coined the phrase yin water, that produces an intense electromagnetic field, which dowsers can perceive as a spiral. And then from that spiral, you have all of these underground rivers and streams. And when you test them for the frequencies, they're really healing. But when you start to put seeds on them or to grow upon these types of energies, you are living in harmony with Gaia, because they will grow. Like has been, I stated at the University of the Atmospheric Research of Boulder, Colorado. This isn't fantasy. This is actual fact, where you can grow and produce harmonic food. And that's what we need. We need harmonic food into our bodies to increase our vibration if we are going to enter into a new earth.
Yeah, I think so. But even just growing your own food for health reasons. It'd be fantastic, fantastic. And as I say, I'm no green fingers, but what I feel I achieved in the little bit I did was, has spurred me on to think, okay, what else can I do? But next year now, I would do things a bit differently because I'm learning. But next year now, I have a better idea what I do, for growing the food. I wouldn't do, I'm not going to do the spring onions. I'm going to focus on definitely the carrots, the cabbage, and I'll be doing potatoes as well, and get them in. And the thing is, you don't actually have to have a raised bed. These plastic containers that you get in, the cheapy shops like Choice and stuff like that, you can use them plastic containers as long as they're quite deep. If you want to grow, root vegetables like potatoes, then actually, put in your compost. I think it's a tenner for a bag to get the compost. Throw it in. And then, put your seeds in, your potato seeds in, and just grow what you can and give it a go. If it doesn't work out, it's no big deal. I just think we all need to kind of get into it, and I will be, expanding. I like the raised bed idea. That's what I built because, the whole idea of bending down and doing the back break and stuff at my age, it's not good.
At your age, yeah. Actually, you know what I was thinking as well? Because this week we have spoken about and we have watched videos in relation to grounding or earthing.
Yeah.
I was wondering, would it have been any benefit to your raised bed if you had that obviously connected via like a wire or some description to the earth as well?
Well, it's a good point because Maria does dowsing, and Maria, you know about energy lines. Is it a case that with your dowsing that you'd be able to pick up the energy lines?
Well, I mean, one good thing for, a raised bed, you're talking about grounding, to have it, grounded, is a good old-fashioned Lakowski core, which is two pieces of copper entwined around each other to create a circle. And if that's placed in the earth, no slugs or snails are going to get at your food either because it sets up its own electrical field. So basically, you just get two bits of industrial copper, you wrap them round one another, create a circle or a square, if you want, and put that around your raised bed, and then a little bit of copper down to the ground, and that would earth it and protect it against any invaders that want to munch away at your lettuce or your carrots or whatever.
Well, that's a good idea because my cabbages have been attacked. And I don't know who's doing it. I have to put CCTV on my cabbages. I don't know who's eating me leaves. And but if you're saying that's going to work, I'd be happy to do that, definitely. So what have you heard about? Have you heard anything about the new Earth and the changes and the Earth energies changing and what's going on? Because there is an element of a bit of madness going on, and what we've heard through guests that we've had on is that there's some people who just cannot resonate with the frequency. They're having a hard time with it, and especially people who aren't woken up and still in the matrix and are having major issues. Have you come across anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Dolores Cannon spoke a lot about, the new Earth. That's, very much, from my understanding, from her school, so to speak. And I was Dolores's guide for Stonehenge, Glastonbury, Avebury. And Dolores's publishing company, Ozark, is about to publish a book of mine on Druid past life soul star astrology in January next year. So I really do resonate with some of Dolores's work. I think sometimes the simplest thing that we can do to reconnect to the earth upon which we live is through grounding. Just literally get out there, feel the earth, smell the earth, go into nature, because I think, we're being programmed all of the time in a way to watch TV, to be on our tablets, to, be staring into a screen. And we forget that nature is beautiful and that nature can connect us to the anima mundi, the soul of Gaia. And if you really do connect, not just grounded, but connect to the anima mundi, as the alchemists used to call it, to the soul of Gaia, I think we can awaken, not just to be switched on against conspiracy theories and the like, which is always very knowledgeable and is one way to awake, but to really connect to the heart of where we live, because we all live on this earth and we've forgotten her. We've kind of forgotten who we are and where we are.
No, definitely. Well, maybe that knowledge has been taken out purposely, because the education system is all about algebra and everything else. thrown in, and it's nothing about, I mean, why aren't our kids out doing gardening, learning about the actual life skills rather than learning stuff that they'll never use? I mean, we know it's all kind of watered down and filtered down, and the stuff they're learning, look, it really doesn't prepare them for life at all. They'll only start learning when they leave school. But tell us something more about the sacred sites, because I know you were planning to do, I don't know whether you got a chance to do the trip with Kerry Cassidy and a few other people before the Bases project, and you were going around a few sacred sites and talking about them. How important are they to us and the energies? Because we have the Hill of Tara, we're not far from the Hill of Tara, and apparently that's supposed to be super energetic.
Yeah, I mean, just before I talk about the sites of Ireland, I would just like to say things are changing. Perhaps not in Ireland just yet, perhaps not in England just yet. But you know what I'm doing this Thursday? I'm taking a whole load of kids aged between, I think they're about 11 to 18, teaching them about earth energies from a school in the Netherlands. So some countries are waking up and they want to be taught about earth energies. They're going to be interacting with megalithic energy and earth energy. So we need more of this in our schools in Ireland and in England. But yes, Sacred Sites of Ireland, wow, you know, you're a gem, the Emerald Isle, that is for sure. And Tara, of course, that's always been a power place. It is a kind of nexus of energies which come in and out of Tara. So when we think of earth energies, don't just think of them as a straight line. Think of them as meandering, and like a dolphin going through the ocean, sometimes they can enter the earth and then they can come back out again. So some earth energies are slightly above the ground and some are below the ground. And at Tara, you have a combination of nodal points. That's where they go into the ground and come out of the ground, which can shower us in energies. You have major lays going through there. And Tara is very well known for the Stone of Destiny, the Mound of Hostages. And the Mound of Hostages, for listeners that don't know what that is and thinking, what are you on about, Mound of Hostages? Well, it's goes back to the Neolithic period, and it's a mound that has inner chambers, like caves. My daughter was about sort of 6 years old, and I used to take her around the ancient sites. She always used to call the long barrows and the cairns, as you guys call it in Ireland, caves, because it is like going into a cave. And the Mound of Hostages is very beautiful, and it's going to be becoming active pretty soon. It's going to become active on November the 1st, which is the Celtic New Year, Samhain. It's a very sacred day to the ancient calendar, of which there were 8 days. And on Samhain, it's the day when the veil between this world and the next grows thin. And then the sun at dawn will illuminate the chambers of the Mound of Hostages. And a bit like I was saying earlier about, you know, food production and fertility, when the sun aligns to the energy lines or the energy currents that aligns to the sacred sites, it becomes illuminated with energy. It becomes really kind of high frequency. So Tara is about to be reactivated on November the 1st, and I'm sure there's going to be gatherings around that ancient site there. So it's almost like the ancients realized that there's 8 sacred days of the year, which are the solstices, the equinoxes, and the cross-quarter days, that are the days in between those solstices and equinoxes, and they aligned ancient sites to them. And when we go and interact with the energies at these times, some people say they get downloads or they just feel relaxed, but they will have an experience. So I would recommend that if you're close to Tara, go up there on November the 1st or October the 31st, which is the eve. And October the 31st is obviously Halloween. It's the ancient pagan festival celebrated of Samhain, when the ancestors you can communicate to the ancestors or other dimensions. It's like a portal to the other world.
That's it. And when you said about the activation of the energy, does this happen all the time, or is it because a certain air change has taken place?
Well, when an ancient site is aligned to a particular solar, lunar or planetary direction, it's that time of the year when everything comes into alignment, that kind of bit like when we can reboot our computers, you know, we kind of reboot it all up and it starts to run all good again. It's a bit like a reboot to the Earth energy system. And I think that's what the ancestors were intending, because they didn't just do that in Ireland. They didn't just do that in Europe. They did that worldwide. They were galvanized to create ancient sites on a global scale, which is certainly insinuating a unification of a spirituality and a religion. No separation there. They all had the same spirituality, it seems, because everything seems to match, whether it's a pyramid, whether it's a mound, whether it's the Hill of Tara, Stonehenge. They all incorporate certain alignments that can be activated at particular times of the eightfold sacred year of our ancient ancestors.
Okay, and do you have any tie-in? I won't say any tie-in, but do you have any information or background information regarding what's going on a global scale regarding the elites and energies and what's happening there? Have you heard anything from your travels as to where we are with them and what's happening on a global level?
Well, through certain avenues, I feel that the elite have their own inner issues as well. The elite are fighting within the elite, so I've been led to believe. Whether that is true or not, I really couldn't say, to be truthful. So they have their own agenda, and they have their own awareness of earth energies. They have their own agendas for lays. But the bigger picture is there are more of us than there are of them. Yeah, if we want to get into the wider picture. And I think just by going to these ancient sites, and incidentally, when we look at our ancient sites, let's get real. Since Karnak, Silbury, Stonehenge, it's becoming restrictive access to these ancient sites, okay? So we need to, the sites that are freely available and are unrestricted, we need to go there because it's switching people on. It's awakening people pretty fast. So I would say to anybody that's half awake, not awake, or even awake, go to these places because they will expand our consciousness and they will expand our auric field, our energy field, our electromagnetic selves, our higher selves, to be far more receptive.
You know, with the likes of Stonehenge, there are photos going around the internet saying that Stonehenge isn't an ancient site and it was put together in the 50s.
It was reconstructed in the 50s by Professor Richard Atkinson and Professor Stuart Piggott. What happened was, you see, if you look to the antiquarian pictures of, say, the 1666 to the 1700s and obviously onwards, you can clearly see, for example, in the 19th century, that the Greater Trilithon at Stonehenge was leaning and about to fall. So from the 1920s onward, you had Colonel Hawley, and then in the 50s and the 60s, and all those pictures that you see are Professor Richard Atkinson re-erecting the stones and setting them upright so that they wouldn't fall anymore. So just simply compare to antiquarian pictures and you will get a bigger picture of Stonehenge. These ancient sites are reconstructed. Stonehenge has been reconstructed. Avery's been reconstructed. Newgrange had an amazing facelift because your ancient site called Newgrange, which is a fantastic kidney-shaped cairn that was probably a sacred temple long before the use of interment of burials. The archaeologists of the era felt like, I know where we should put the white quartz. Let's stick it on the front of the monument. Where every other monument in Ireland, when you look at Carrickeel and other places like that, have the white quartz on top of the monument. And I think if you look at the reconstruction of Newgrange, you'll find behind that crystal fosse that you have breeze blocks. Because it's so reconstructed. So it's not just Stonehenge. I feel that, you can really plot Stonehenge from quite accurately from about 1666. The first architect to go in there, and he was an architect, he was called Inigo Jones, and that's where you get the name Indiana Jones from, because he mapped Stonehenge for the then King of England. And you just have to compare all of those surveys to what Stonehenge is now. It's not a fake. It's just been reconstructed.
Okay, so if they're going in and doing the reconstruction, obviously for the benefit to make it look better and so it doesn't fall over, is that not affecting the energies?
Well, they obviously didn't use the ancient method of putting a stone in the ground. Because when you look at those mighty stones of Stonehenge, and indeed of Avebury, and like the Beltany stone circle of Ireland, for example, the stones actually don't go in the ground that far. You think they do. You look at the massive stones of Stonehenge and think, oh my goodness, they must go into the ground by about 8 feet. They don't. They're about 3 feet in the ground. But they're not in the earth in the southwest of England. They're in chalk bedrock. So they cut, if you imagine, into chalk directly, cavities, put the stone into that cavity, and then mixed a lot of water with chalk, and that can set like concrete. And some of the stones, stayed in situ, upright, for, 4,500 years at Stonehenge. The only reason some of the trilithons fell was because of horse fairs and sheep fairs, and you used to get travellers that used to dig out by the stones to get out of the wind. And because they're not in the ground that far, they toppled over. So you had those ones re-erected by Atkinson, thankfully so, in about 1957 or the 60s thereafter. So they're not in the ground that far.
Okay.
And once you do re-erect them and set them in concrete, they will still be active, but not as active as they originally were. Because you can test this on stones that are in situ and stones that have been concreted in.
Now, tell me, you probably know about this chap in Florida who actually found a way, apparently, using harmonics to lift these stones. I mean, you're talking about tons and tons, stones that weigh tons. He could use harmonics using 2 cone-shaped devices, and the secret died with him. But apparently he has a place in Florida where he was moving these stones around very easily.
Yeah, that's right. That's Coral Castle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coral Castle in Florida?
That's right, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, he was a very small guy from Lithuania. He was only, 5 feet something, and he moved megaliths quite easy. And he had even at the entrance megalith to the castle was huge, and he could actually get it to spin round. And he certainly had the ability to move stone and large quantities of stone. That is for sure. And his secret did die with him. But to our ancient ancestors, stone moving wasn't a problem. We perceive it as the problem, but they were moving stone everywhere, for making pyramids in Mexico at a certain time, to places like Egypt, to Stonehenge. To them, moving stone was relatively easy. They were doing that all of the time. They were master masons. We've just forgotten how they did that. And when you start looking at the earth energies that flow into and out of the ancient sites, maybe it's about raising fertility for food production and for fertility and for ancient rites, but maybe these earth currents were a part of the mystery of how to move stone.
Yeah, see, the whole idea of what we would think, and not knowing about harmonics, is the whole idea of cranes and stuff like that. And again, this ancient knowledge has been either, taken away from us, because we don't know about it, and maybe they did use harmonics. I mean, even with the Native American Indians, when they did their Indian rain dance, I mean, again, that's all about frequencies. It's all about the how they did it, and the frequency they resonated on for it to happen. So when they were doing their chants around the fire, there was all reasons for that. And we know now that it is very important. Frequencies are very, very important to everything, because we all resonate on a frequency. And that's how important it is. Now, there was a chap who was, as I say, in Florida, who did that with the stones. And there's another chap who found a way how to do it. But there's different ways, I suppose, how to move them. Even using signs to move them. Another idea I came across was to, if you had a stone, you create like a ball shape. You actually put the stone in a ball shape, and then when you put it in a ball shape, you can actually just roll the stone. to where you want it and then dismantle the actual ball shape?
No, I haven't heard about the ball method apart from when you can move certain stones along that. But you can also walk stones. There's some videos on YouTube of ancient cultures where you can get a huge megalith upright and literally walk it along. But yeah, to use balls, there was one chap, I forget what he's called now, but he's got a video on YouTube where he does use that, and he moves a ton quite easily by himself, just using these balls methods of twisting the stone around. So I think there are some very ingenious methods of moving stone for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a number of methods. Years ago, when I was in the corporate world, I was in Italy, and we were out for a meal, and there was a couple of guys there from Egypt, and I happened to ask them, how do you think the Egyptians actually made the pyramids? Now, I wasn't open-minded at the time. It was just a general question. And they believed that they built one layer of the pyramid and then covered it with sand, and then dragged up the next layer, covered it with sand, and did that all the way up to the top. Now, I personally can't see them doing that, but I just went, oh, that was interesting. Okay, it's one way they see it, but I think there's a lot more involved there. But I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. For people who don't understand or haven't heard or are not familiar with dowsing, can you talk to people about dowsing, about what it is, what you do, and how can it benefit people in a way? Maybe finding ley lines which are not good, which might be going through your house. You know, the whole feng shui thing, moving things around. There could be ley lines, because I know we had Walter Graham on a while ago, and Walter was telling us about a story that where he was sleeping at night where his bed was, he was always getting headaches, and he brought somebody in who could actually do dowsing and understood ley lines, and without actually telling Walter anything, he just went into the bedroom, did a check, and said, whoever's sleeping in the bed here is getting headaches. And Walter said, well, that's me, that's my bed. And he goes, well, are you getting headaches? And Walter said, yes. He goes, there's a ley line there, that's why you're actually getting headaches.
Yeah, well, it's not just ley lines, it's grid lines as well. But yeah, it's the same principle. If you go across a straight, if you sleep on a straight line, whether it's a grid line or a ley line, it's not good. Why? Well, we look to ancient feng shui practices. Anything that travels in a straight line is called sha qi. Energy travels too fast in a straight line, so it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause health issues, and the headache is the very minimum of it. It can go on to cause much more detrimental problems. And that's why the Chinese had bends in their roofs, like a horseshoe shape. You see all Chinese roofs like that, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's because they're encouraging the energy, qi, of the universe not to flow in a straight line, but to gently curve and grace. So, yes, dowsing can be used to decode our homes and our houses, because it's not just leys that cause problems. It's the curry net, it's the Hartman grid, and these were discovered by Dr. Hartman and Dr. Curry respectively in the 1950s, and they realized that these grids, if you imagine like a fishnet thrown over Gaia, that wherever certain crossing points occur are very, very detrimental, and they can even induce cancer or whatever's in your DNA that's, quite bad. And dowsing can detect this. And, I teach dowsing on Skype and online as well as practical courses. And within 2 hours on a Skype lesson, over 2 lessons, I can get people, no matter where they are in the world, to find and locate these energy lines. And they're that simple, because dowsing is really, really simple. Most people that dowse use what's called an L rod. And that's literally like an L-shaped piece of metal. The best types of rods, in my opinion, are copper mixed with nickel, and you kind of visualize that which you're going to douse. You set your intent of that which you're going to douse, and then your dowsing rod can help you to interpret that. So we can make our homes safer, our living spaces safer, because for the example you gave with the ley line on the bedroom, let's put a double whammy there now. Let's put a router on that line, and let's look to the horizon and see a phone mast. Well, if you have more electromagnetic energy on that as well, you're compounding the problem. So by moving the bed, by living in harmony with the earth, you can change your health and change your life. So dowsing is a fundamental tool that allows us to know what influences and frequencies we're living above, and it's really easy. If I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah, no, I seen a guy on when we had remember Sky TV had that channel that had all the programs on it. Steve, remember that? I don't know, I forget what channel it was.
Eerie Investigations.
Controversial TV.
Oh, Controversial TV.
Controversial TV. And this guy was a dowser. And he was
that was Leslie, actually.
Was it? Okay, because he was demonstrating dowsing, and he said, I'm going to set a path now, and he set a path, and then he removed the path. You know,
that's very popular with British dowsers to move things around. In Europe and China, not necessarily they do that. They kind of live more in harmony with the earth. You don't have to move anything. You just live in harmony with it. Because if you start moving things in one school of dowsing, and not all dowsers agree with this, but if you start moving lines and moving things, then some animals really like negative energies. Some plants really thrive on what we would consider to be negative energy. So if you start to move things, you might be moving an ecosystem around. So it's better just to focus on what's in your house and raise that frequency, is my opinion. But there are lots of different schools out there of dowsing that have lots of different methods, and sometimes we just have to find what works for us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's a story that we were told by Walter, which people probably don't know or haven't heard, but apparently the royal family are big on this, and before they do any building of any property, what they do is they have an expert that comes in. The same guy that Walter had checking out his house is the same guy that's used by the royal family. And what happened was, this is going back when Sarah Ferguson was married to Prince Andrew. And what she did was, she went and built like a summer house extension on one of the properties without actually getting this guy in. And then when obviously the Queen heard about it, she sent your man down straight away. He went around, he checked the area, and he said, no, you can't build it here. And basically they pulled down the extension. That's how serious they are about making sure that when they build, that it's built in the right location.
Well, the royal family, I can assure you, use more than one dowser, as do the Rothschilds. Yeah, they employ more than one feng shui from more than one nationality. They want to know the whole shebang, holistically. They'd want to know what it's interpreted from China, from Germany, from England. So I would say I feel that they do use more than one. I mean, in one quite prestigious residence in this area, I was called out to have a look at why. I mean, they're rich people, so you think, why would an electricity bill bother them? But clearly it did. And I was called out to find out why the electricity bill was in constant meltdown, causing a lot of money. And that was a lay draining the property, and the electricity was kind of flowing down the line, so to speak, and was causing the bill to rise up and rise up and rise up. So that had to be, altered on the inside, not necessarily moved on the outside, for example. But they had more than one consultant come in on that. As well. So I think, they can afford to have lots of different consultations on lots of different interpretations, is for sure. But, we have in Wiltshire quite a few prestigious places. We have the Rothschilds in Wiltshire, for example, and on a lay they have built a geometric glass pyramid, which focuses a lot of energy in Wiltshire on that part of the landscape. It's on a huge, huge global lay system. So clearly they know about the art of placement, but they always have done.
Well, I was going to say, again, we have certain monuments in certain locations in the cities. In Dublin you have the Spire. In London you have monuments all over the place, and they obviously know about these monuments being able to focus the energy, whether obviously it's negative energy more than likely. That's what we've heard. What's your take on that?
Well, from the get-go, if you look at Eton, very prestigious school, I'm sure that we're all aware of that. It has a sacred prehistoric mound in its environ. You go to Marlborough College, which is just down the road for me, to where Kate Middleton went and Princess Bee went. It has a mound in the college. Yeah, they're all associated with sacred sites of public schools.
Wow. Okay.
And not only are they associated with ancient sites as a fundamental part of their grounds, these ancient sites are above these huge electromagnetic spiral patterns, which is far, far more powerful than a ley ever will be, yeah, because they push out a really good frequency. So that's where they're kind of, brought up. And then if you look to the art of placement in cities, for example, and you look to the wider picture of the global grid systems, then you'll find that from the Victorian period onward, if you get any building that's like an orphanage, a prison, Wormwood Scrubs, for example, they're placed on lines that can induce things like paranoia. They can make you feel fearful, which is a really stupid thing to put a prison on.
Yeah.
But to keep that control, to keep that dumbing down, to keep those people feeling fearful, the art of placement is a very good thing. Now, the opposite happens when it comes to the colleges and the public schools. They are harmonically placed with an ancient site associated within the grounds. And just do your own homework and you'll find that to be a truth.
I think the more people kind of get with learning about the earth and, getting back into the earth and planting and food and all that, and dowsing would be probably one thing that would be good for them as well to learn, and all these skills that we need to get back to. But listen, we have a number of questions that have come in, so I'm going to pass you off to Steve, and Steve will go through the questions for you there.
Hope I can answer them then.
Well, if you can't answer them, we're in trouble, put it that way. I think we're going to be fairly safe. Joan is wondering, divining and dowsing, are they the same thing, Maria?
It's what, mining?
No, divining.
Oh, divining. Oh, absolutely. It's the ancient sacred word for dowsing. And, so divining is to douse. And it's about making true dowsers. It's not just about finding a ley line. It's about connecting with the anima mundi, the soul of Gaia, being in servitude of Gaia and connecting and knowing how to interpret their energies. So I could, move along in my divine in the ancient sites, but I have to, as a good dowser and a professional dowser, be able to interpret that which I find. And that is the key art of divine in the earth. So yes, they're one and the same word, but I do prefer the word divining because it adds a kind of symbolic sacredness to what we do.
And sometimes you see TV shows where someone will have a piece of wood. I know it's from a specific tree or whatever it may be, and they locate water. Is water the only thing you could find, like, with these things? I mean, okay, you can find ley lines and you can find water. Could you find, if you put the intent into it, can you find anything? Like, could you find gold?
Cleopatra had some fantastic diviners who were employed just to find gold. In the the medieval period, dowsers were employed to find minerals. You can, with intent, it's your intent. Do I want to find underground water? Do I want to find grid lines? Do I want to find gold? Do I want to find out the secrets of the ancient landscape, which is my forte, because I've gone on to find with dowsing things like, the elongated skulls of Stonehenge. But just to get back to the piece of wood for divining, the first dowsing rods were like a V shape. It represented the uterus of Gaia, and it was traditionally hazel. And it was traditionally hazel because in Irish manuscripts and the Druidic legends, right at the centre of the earth, you have a deep, deep well of water, and that's the yin water I always refer to that Gaia produces independent of rainfall, around which grew 9 hazel trees. So that's why we use hazel to find water, because the Druidic period, and in Irish manuscripts, they said that the hazel trees grew around that sacred water, so it's natural for hazel to find water. Then it got changed from the V shape into a Y rod, which was far more phallic in shape, and it became quite masculine, and many men use the kind of masculine Y rod of hazel to find water. But it's intent. Whatever your intent is, you will find with dowsing, so the theory goes.
You mentioned earlier about the L rod. Is that better in any particular way?
It's easy because the metal is a harder material, so you can carry it around with ease. Because I've snapped lots of hazel twigs, I can assure you. And my last hazel twig that I did had, which was absolutely wonderful at finding underground water, which incidentally I have done. I have found, wells and bored wells. I do not do that now at all. But in the past, I have done. I found leaks for builders and pipes for builders and etc. But yeah, my last hazel twig, a fantastic friend of mine sat on and snapped, and I thought, that's it. I'm going to get a good old-fashioned metal L-rod of copper, and nobody can break it. So that's why I use it for practical purposes.
Can I just say, what's his name in the 70s? Uri Geller, the spoon bender, the guy who was always bending all the spoons in the 70s. He's was hired by a lot of companies to go and find certain minerals and water and all that kind of stuff, and he was paid handsomely for that.
Oil.
Yeah, oil. Yeah, totally.
It was oil.
Yeah.
And again, it's I think sometimes, and that's fantastic for him to earn all of that money. But who was he working for? And what are you promoting with that? I sometimes think that dowsing, and when we really awaken, we have to awaken to the bigger picture and find out who we really are working for and why we're doing this. And to keep exploiting the earth for all of her minerals through dowsing, is that a good thing? I don't, as a dowser, I have to start to question where I think dowsing should be going for the future. Where it's going for the future, for me, I think is to understand our past, to try and awaken us to our future, and to live in harmony with the earth, to find the best place to grow our food, to find the energies that can help heal us, and the energies that can help switch us on, and try to understand the earth on a very metaphysical level. Now, whether you want to exploit that for water or gold, if anyone was ever, this country was in a bad water supply, obviously I would get back into finding water. And I think it's a lie that we are being fed by governments and by, these people that are in power, that we are running out of water, because the perpetual water I was talking about, born within Gaia, yin water, is constantly being produced chemically within the earth. Yes, it's deep. Yes, it will be expensive to bore, but that will never, ever run dry. Theoretically, we should never, ever have a water shortage.
Yeah.
Ever.
What about the companies that say I decide that I want to get off the mains and I want to have a well, and I think they charge probably between 10 and 15,000 euros, maybe, at a guess, I think, for a well, if you want to have a well. Now, is it true that they use dowsers to come out to find the water on your property?
It is a very tried and tested method, and Wessex Water, which is the kind of water in my area, which I think is owned by a Japanese company now. But anyway, they can water divine. I've often spoken to I've got a big kind of water station, an artesian well, right about sort of 2 miles away from where I live, and they're very good at water divining. It's the most natural thing to find. And according to one dowsing author called Sig Longren, he says that in going back to cave paintings, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old in Algeria, he claims that there is one particular painting that gives not just a kind of a view of somebody dowsing, but somebody giving a dowsing lesson to others. So if we're going back to the Paleolithic times, then the Neolithic people that kind of constructed all of the sites, like the long barrows, and then the Bronze Age people that constructed the stone circles, clearly that they may have inherited all of the skills of dowsing to be more perceptible to the energies that they wanted to associate with their monumental building program worldwide.
Wow. It's incredible that it's great that this information is coming out, and as you say, we need to educate our kids. We need to educate people more about it and get back to nature and get back to Mother Earth and be able to do this. And I'm sure maybe after this show, everybody's going to start getting the hangers and making L-shaped rods and gone out the back garden to check out to see what they can find. Put the intent out there. Do you have more questions for
I do indeed,
Marie?
yeah. Just a very quick search, just going to throw it out there. The Irish Society of Diviners. There is a website, irishdiviners.com, for anyone in, I think it's based in Dublin, if anyone is interested in checking that one out. Question-wise, we have a couple of questions from Chris. Chris says, can you ask Maria, is she familiar with Andrew Power's book of Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, and his conclusion on Newgrange and the Boyne region?
No, sorry, Chris, I'm not familiar with that. But there are lots of different ideas about Newgrange, being associated not just with the midwinter sunrise, but associated to Sirius, and then other authors place Atlantis very close to places like Sligo in Ireland. So I don't know if that's anything to do with it, because it's often been pointed out, for example, that if Atlantis was in the Atlantic, and there was, obviously the flood and a catastrophe, and you were in a boat without any oars, for example, and you were drifting. Yeah, and you were just drifting across the Atlantic. One of the first points of call would be Sligo in Ireland. It's a natural bay and harbour. When we look to the ancient sites around the Sligo area, intriguingly and interestingly so, they're among the oldest monuments in the British Isles. They predate Stonehenge, for example. So something was happening in Sligo long before Stonehenge was seeded.
Well, they do say Atlantis is off the west coast of Ireland. And if you look at the maps of George Michael Scallon, who talks about the pole shift and the air changes apparently going to take place, if you look at the map, there's going to be tectonic plate movement, and some land is going to come up and some land is going to go down. And in Ireland, funny enough, if you look at the map, the location of where me and Steve are, good news for us, Steve.
Yeah.
The land's going to be above water, and all the other part of Ireland is going to be below water. But off the west coast of Ireland, more kind of southward, is Atlantis, and he has that depicted on the map of it risen, because of tectonic plate movement. So that's interesting if that happens. But if people want to go to Google and type in George Michael Scallon map or Edgar Casey map, you'll actually see what land is underwater and what land is above water. This has apparently got to do with the pole shift. Now we know that planet Earth is out of it's 23.4 degrees out of tilt. It's on a tilt of 23.4 degrees, and it needs to be put back in balance. And this has been mentioned by a lot of people, and there's a lot of talk about it, and apparently it's in place, it's in motion at the moment. So if the Earth is going to be moving, does that mean that all the energy lines that you're getting now are going to be changed?
Well, I would imagine so, because any catastrophe that happens, even if we look back to, what probably caused the flood, which is now thought to be, isn't it, around 11,000 rather years ago, a comet impact in North America, for example, that caused a lot of catastrophe. Then, it's not just about the energy lines. Once you have the spiral patterns and the circular patterns that underground water creates, and you have a massive comet impact, that's going to get shaken around on the inside. So things are. It's not just about layers. I mean, the Currynet and the Hartman are said to be caused by the Earth's magma creating magnetism and the ionosphere above. So if you have any massive Earth changes, it's going to change a lot. It's going to change, the fundamental kind of etheric web all around Gaia herself. So we need to be prepared for these changes as well, because we do interact with these grid systems. We become, we're not conscious of it all of the time. And it's not just about grounding either. Going back to the 1960s, there was a wonderful researcher called Frances Nixon, and what she discovered was that the human body has what's called a viv axis. And the Viv axis is like an umbilical cord, a magnetic umbilical cord that connects us to the place where we were born. Yeah, it kind of links in on a kind of auric level. And she did lots of experiments how to rebalance your Viv axis, which she thought was more important than grounding, because when you're in your mother's womb and you're growing, your bones, so the theory goes, becomes magnetized to the energies, the earth energies, the grids, etc., of where, your mother was carrying you. And then naturally in the fetus, the theory goes is that the young child moves around in such a way as all of the kind of magnetic energies cause this cord to link into the earth, and that's the first labour pains that the mother has, that the baby is ready. So there's a school of thought that is saying, as well as grounding, we need to reconnect with our Viv axis and tune into the place of our birth to receive the minerals that our bones received when we were growing up. So I think we need to be very open-minded to earth energies, where we were born, where we live now, and how elevation, the height of where we live now to where we were born, can affect our bones and our health. And, obviously mainstream isn't going to make us aware of this. So I'd say to some of your readers, if you want to go beyond grounding, go to, the Viv axis principle, which I have in my book, Divine in Ancient Sites, for example, on how to work with this with Dowsing. I think it's an important principle. And the great thing about Ireland is I really, really do love some of your Irish sites, like Carrickeel. Have you guys been to Carrickeel?
Well, I haven't been to Carrickeel. Have you been to Carrickeel?
Don't even know where it is.
On where we are located now on Walton's Mountain, not too far away from us, is Lough Crew.
Yeah, I've been there several times.
Yeah, and Lough Crew is it's not far from us. And
the Hag's Chair.
Sorry?
And the Hag's Chair is quite close to the...
Well, no point calling my neighbour a hag. I haven't heard of the Hag's Chair. I mean, I know we have a few...
You have to go back and sit in it then. You're going to have to go back to Lough Crew and sit in the Hag's Chair, guys. Make a wish, sir. I
know we have one or two neighbours we don't get on with, but I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't call them an old hag. But, so a Hag's Chair, where we are, we're in Lough Crew, there's a Hag's Chair.
Yeah. If you go around the... Yeah, it's like a kind of megalithic seat throne that you can sit in. Yeah, it's at the crossing point of two lanes. It's a very important place. So, you go there, set your intent, whatever your intent is going to be, higher consciousness, be that what it may, and sit in that chair, and then put your palms down on the chair, and you will start to feel massive tingles and energy there.
That's in Lough Crew.
Yeah.
In all the time I've been up there a few times. Have you seen that up there? I've never seen that up there.
I've got a picture of it here now, and I can't say...
I remember it being there.
It must be new.
It must be new. I don't think...
It's not new, it's megalithic.
It's IKEA. It's an IKEA. They put it up there, I tell you. You've got another question for Maria there, Steve.
I do. Chris wonders, Maria, do you think it's possible that the elites do satanic rituals and child abuse at sacred sites in order to poison the earth?
Well, I would feel, sadly, in my heart, yes. Now, I happened to be at Stonehenge for the summer solstice in the evening. I was just hanging out. I went to meet a friend there, actually. And obviously couldn't get in. The crowds had gone. And we were just, in view of who was going into Stonehenge. And it was getting very late. And even on private access, you cannot enter that monument when it's pitch black, midnight. Yeah, you can't. For love or money, you couldn't get in there. I could take people in there, and I couldn't get in there. And I saw about 4 or 5 blacked out cars heading for that area, going into private access. Who are these people that go there? What are they doing there? I feel that Stonehenge can be used quite negatively, sadly so. I mean, you just think about, I'm sure, God forbid though, that Trump will probably end up at Stonehenge. Most of the presidents of Europe eventually go there. I think, for some initiation. So I think your listener, Chris, is completely right. I think, yes, they can be manipulated for, dark purposes.
What's that place in Ireland? Hell's something?
Oh, the Hellfire Club.
The Hellfire Club. Yeah, that kind of. What's your thoughts on that, or have you come across it?
I can remember having conversations with Thomas Sheridan about hellfire. Personally, I don't know too much about it. Just a kind of glimpse into it. But again, I think if we look at how we use ancient sites rather than how, there's going to be good and bad everywhere where you go. But if we go to these ancient sites, like it's going to be called the IKEA chair from now on with me, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I have it sponsored by IKEA on the bottom.
Yeah, but if we go to these places and tune in, we can change our own consciousness to raise up and invite people that we know to go to these places. And I think you guys should definitely go to Carrickeel, which are fantastic cairns. They're on a very large hill or like a mountainside. And it's how Newgrange should have looked like. Instead of sticking those pieces of white quartz on the front of the breeze blocks, they should have put it over the top of the cairn like at Carrickeel. Because if you imagine a huge, like semicircle mound with lots of white quartz on the top, but when you go inside of the chambers, as they're called, beneath the mound, you're inside a white quartz box. Everything is white quartz. It is singy and it's magical. I'm taking a tour there actually with Thomas Sheridan on May the 1st for 7 days, and then for the summer solstice from June the 17th for 7 days with author Cara St. Louis. So I often go to Ireland, with authors on tours and things, and we learn from one another. But these places in Ireland, there's nowhere else in the British Isles, apart from the Isle of Man, actually, that has these white quartz chambers. And if you imagine 3 of these huge mounds on top of the mountain, another author, he called James Swagger, he realized that they were aligned to the stars above, which is Cassiopeia in the heavens, and that midwinter the stars aligned to the chambers and could flood it with starlight. So these were celestial monuments in Ireland. They are absolutely spectacular.
So where did he get the knowledge from? That's the question.
That's the question. It has to be inherited knowledge, or intercepted knowledge. I think it's kind of probably inherited, because when you look to some of the artifacts going way back to, like 40,000 BC, they were very aware of the lunar phases then. They were very aware of the lunar eclipses, for example, because lunar eclipses were really, really important to our ancient ancestors. Why? Because at times of a lunar eclipse, the Earth's magnetism, and this is fact, not kind of Earth mysteries fantasy, as some people would say. At the time of the lunar eclipse, the Earth's magnetism drops. Lays become hard to detect. Earth energies become hard to detect. It's like everything goes shh for a while. And so when the Earth's kind of grid system and lays start to fall down, our ancient ancestors wanted to know when. So they created monuments like Stonehenge Phase 1 that is actually an eclipse predictor. To the day, to the moment. You can predict eclipses. That's advanced astronomical awareness and knowledge and skill.
Well, Newgrange is 5000 BC, so to have that kind of knowledge then, and even like certain monuments in, is it the NASCAR lines? Where they didn't know they were there until they invented flight, and they went up and they seen these lines in South America, I think. I'm not too sure where they are exactly in there. And then, David Icke in his book talks about these masses, these rocks that weigh like 400 ton, and you can't get a cigarette paper in between both of them because they've been cut perfectly. Where's all this knowledge come from? I mean, where do they have this technology and knowledge from the lands and how to move these rocks and stuff like that? See, all this knowledge has been taken away. And we don't know, and wherever they find, obviously, if they find information that goes against the dogma, they just bury it. Because a lot of these people that go off on research to find out, ancient history, as soon as they find something that goes against the dogma, they're being funded by these colleges or corporations, and they're told that, well, if you don't do what you're told, the funding's going to be cut, and then that's it. We don't hear anything from it. So I do think that there's an element of that going on, and there's so much more. I mean, if you think about it, if it's true that the Earth has been reset 5 or 6 times, like the button has been pressed, like we know about Noah's flood, but maybe it happened 4 or 5 times before that, because they are finding ancient artifacts in Egypt, and you think, I remember one thing they found was an ancient battery. But it wasn't like
the Baghdad battery.
Yeah, it wasn't a battery with ever ready on it or anything like that. But it was, the Baghdad battery. And you're thinking, well, where did this knowledge come from?
Exactly. I mean, the astronomical precision of some of the lay settings, just in this area actually where I live with Avebury and Stonehenge. Now, so we need to think about that you've got a lay, which is a straight line, and let's say you've got lots of ancient sites on that straight line. That's what a lay is. It links ancient sites. But now we're going to widen the picture far more. You're going to have Stonehenge, you're going to have Avebury, you're going to have all these different sites, and you're going to have Silbury Hill, which is in the area. And it's the largest man-made mound in Europe, has represented the planet Earth. And for example, you've got Stonehenge, which represents the planet Saturn, Now, if you use the mean distance from Earth, Silbury Hill, to Saturn, Stonehenge, that's what the ancients were doing. They were laying out the system of the planets to lay on this ley line to the planets to the mean distance of them in space. So, I mean, it's not just like, aligning something to where you can see it as the sunrise, a sunset, a moonrise, a moonset. They knew the mean distance of the Earth to the planets. That is a major awareness that we, humankind, modern day man, we are meant then, didn't really find out to past the 1930s. But they knew it back in their day, 5,000 years ago. And that's attested to by how they laid that planetary lay system out. They brought heaven to earth. Yeah.
It's just phenomenal that they had this knowledge, and, the way we're told in their history books, they don't even talk about it in the history books. They might give it a mention, but they don't go into detail as, well, how did they do that? Oh, we don't have time for that, and we're just going to tell you that they're there, and that's it. And that's kind of the approach with the history, and it's a shame, but, they just want to cover it up. But I think Steve has more questions for you there. Steve?
Yeah, we do. The Nazca lines that you just mentioned there earlier, I put a link up there. If anyone just looks that up in a search engine, Nazca, it's very interesting. So those images that I had up on the screen, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And they were there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
They were only found when man invented flight.
Yeah.
They could only see them from the air.
That's amazing. I mean, we think we're technologically advanced now. I mean, when you see what kind of technology there was years ago. I mean, the likes of what you're talking about here, that can predict, can predict a lot of stuff. Maybe we are Neanderthal, man.
Yeah,
I think we are. Question was, yes, in relation to Feng Shui. Is there kind of, without actually getting someone in, Maria, is there any kind of tips that you could give us and the listeners? I mean, as in, let's say, for argument's sake, somebody wants to know what is the best position to have their, let's say, their bed.
Sure.
Could you kind of say, like, when it's midnight and the moon is in the position, have your bed facing that way? Is there any tips and tricks?
Yeah, there is actually. So that's a really good question. You have signs of geopathic stress, okay? So say, for example, your bed's in the wrong position, and it's about long-term usage, 5 years plus, So if you find it difficult going to sleep, if you wake up feeling very fatigued, if you grind your teeth, if you kind of always move in the same position, like you're going away from something, you're moving away from a line, do you mean by moving your legs up? Do you see what I mean? In a kind of awkward position.
Yeah.
That's all symptoms of geopathic stress, which is being under the influence of toxic grid lines, ley lines, underground water, because aquifer water that fell from rain, that fills up the underground streams and rivers, etc., that gives off a really, really high Hertz field that is also very carcinogenic. It's not good to live above. So if you're constantly interacting with this environment by sleeping above it, because we spend a long time sleeping, you will have those symptoms of geopathic stress. Like I said, teeth grinding, waking up, very commonly so, between 2 and 4 a.m. in the morning, really waking up, not just like feeling dozy or I'm half asleep, but waking up. That's a sign, because geopathic stress is at its highest around that time, flowing down the leys and flowing down the grid lines. So yeah, if you've got those symptoms, grid lines and leys sometimes aren't that wide. Sometimes they're about 15 centimetres, sometimes 30 centimetres. That's not that big, really. Try just moving your bed 30 to 40 centimetres away. Do you see what I mean? So if you have any of those symptoms, simply get off the grid. Get off the grid and you move your bed. So I would say to people, and look to people that are in wheelchairs, and if they start to behave worse on a particular area that you're always putting them in, then that could be also that. Children that kind of really become disruptive at schools, I've noticed, they can be on these type of grid lines, and they start to react against it because they want to be off the grid. So they will become disruptive. They stand up, they move away. They're doing something very unconsciously that's actually protecting them, but they're being told off for it. So I think, in the future, I'd like to think that schools, and I do try to work closely with some schools, that they listen to this and say, right, let's look at the bigger picture here. What is going on metaphysically? And you just move something 30 centimetres as a trial, isn't it? You don't even have to pay for this stuff. You just move it, and it can change lives.
Okay, definitely worth considering and looking more into. Just when you said about between 2 and 4 a.m., I used to work in a previous life, I used to work care of the elderly, and we used to notice when people were sick and dying, most people would die between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. Kind of thought that was strange. Yes, that's, astrologically speaking, it's quite a critical time, as well. And it's also the time, when the earth energies are strongest, and there's one kind of school of dowsing thought, if you will, when people die at that time, because that's when the earth, as much as heaven above, Father God, Mother Earth, Mother, pulls you back into her as well. It's a time to die, with Gaia. Yeah. It's very interesting stuff. The last question I have at the moment is, and this is something I was watching a couple of nights previously, they were talking about numbers, and numbers are involved in everything, but the number 12 comes up time to time, and it's they were saying 12 hours in a day, 12 hours in the night, 12 in a dozen. There's a lot of sacred geometry, and the number 9 and the number 12 comes up a lot. Can you share any information on those numbers with us?
Well, that's really interesting, because yes, they are, very powerful numbers. And when we look to one of the most powerful forms of earth energy, which is generated by underground water that flows in a river and emits a harmonic energy field, guess how many lines it has? It flows in 12. So it's like Mother Earth's inner waters, her earth energies tend to use the numbers 12, 9, 3, and 6. Yeah. So it's kind of a numerical pattern, because you will always, and sevens, as well, because you will always have spirals that go in 7 coils, 14 coils, 21 coils, right the way up to 49 coils.
That's really, are you referring to the Fibonacci sequence?
No, it's
the coils and that.
That's a different number sequence. But in the number sequence of the powerful earth energies, they do speak in sevens, and they're kind of more of a kind of tighter coil. but they are very harmonic. In essence, is what a Fibonacci spiral is. It's a harmonic, you know. So yeah, these are harmonics. So yeah, wherever you have 12 lines flowing, you have a beautiful harmonic energy field, and that energy field can then spread out for up to 100 feet. Yeah. So, and this is what our ancient ancestors were kind of pinpointing and placing stones above, like in earth acupuncture, to keep that terrestrial flow going, and sometimes manipulating it in another direction. It's called the rise of the dragon in ancient China. You could manipulate where that 12 lines flow. Do you see what I mean? You could have it marked naturally, or you could manipulate its flow. And if we could do that to housing estates, if we could do that to hospitals, that's where we should be going for in the future, redirecting the Earth's terrestrial energies to live harmonically and help people self-heal. But no, it's about dumbing down at the moment, dumbing down with the water, putting the fluorides in it, get off the grid, stop drinking the water, and don't go to IKEA.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of the number 12, I have to read this out because it's very funny. Chris just said, speaking about the number 12 bottles of Heineken on sale in Lidl.
Yeah, 12 seems to be the big number, all right. And I've heard this before, and the elites like the number 12 as well, apparently, for where, all their sinister reasons, I reckon. They are very focused on numerology, and there's always talk about numbers, especially when there's certain problem reaction solution situations that we've had in the past. It's always equated to numbers in some way, not just 12, but other numbers as well. Obviously, in there, wherever their satanic process is, that they need to have these numbers being lined up in a certain way. But let's just go over some information that you said there earlier, just for the people that are, people that might have missed the start. If people want to go off and do their own dowsing or just try this divining, now, for me, what I've done this before, and what I've done is I've got a couple of metal hangers, and I've just cut the hangers, made an L shape, and then put them in some kind of round, maybe electrical cable that, because you can't be touching the metal. You have to be kind of, they have to be free flowing, so you have to make sure that they're not touching your skin. And I put them in some metal piping, or some plastic piping, and then I've given it a go. And I just remember doing that years ago. I don't know whether I was successful or not, because I didn't know how to do it. But as you say, you have to put your intent in it and everything else. So there's a bit more to it. But for people who want to give it a try, do you recommend that they could use the hangers, or as you mentioned earlier, copper is probably better with a bit of nickel in it?
Well, I mean, just to see if you can, get a feel for it, coat hangers is fantastic because it's simple, it's cheap. You can, you can go and do that yourself. And to make the sleeves, as they're called, you can just get straws. Straws, and cut them off and put those on, and that's really easy. Or pens, biro pens, the plastic bits, and put those in there. And literally go in your house, and think of water. Yeah, imagine a stream flowing, a surface stream flowing, and now just imagine a surface stream, flowing a bit beyond under your feet. Yeah. Use that as your intent. I'm going to focus on underground water. Then put the two rods at the width of your body, in a really nice comfy position that you feel comfortable and relaxed with, and just say to those two dowsing rods, is there any underground water associated with this house? And quite often they just move. To begin with, they'd probably just twitch, I mean, to dowsers that are used to this, they'd probably go to an X for a yes. It's saying yes. Yeah. But let's say they twitch a little bit. Or even if they don't twitch, just start to walk across your living room slowly, like an action replay, nice and slowly, and see if the rods cross or repulse. They may go in the opposite direction, wide. Go away from your body. They either come as an X into your body or go away from you. So just do that. Have a go at getting some coat hangers and some straws or some biros and walk across the living room or walk across your garden and see if the rods cross. And if they do, 9 times out of 10 for first-time dowsers, that's bingo for underground water.
Now, I also heard that if you want to do this, to really test it, because you're going to get your skeptics, if you fill up a bucket full of water, and you put it in front of your path, and then you put the intention out there to find the water, and you walk towards the bucket, and you do it right, you get to the bucket and they cross over, there's the proof that it's actually picked it up.
Well, there's sometimes it's I hear what you're saying, but sometimes it has to be flowing water.
Okay.
Because there was some trials done. I think it was in Salzburg University where they were looking into water divining specifically and found that the dowsers couldn't detect it if it was just not flowing.
Okay.
But as soon as they kind of got a pipe under the ground and hid it like in a hose pipe and it was flowing, it was much more easy to detect, because it's thinking about, it's like the friction, it's moving through the earth, and that's what your muscles are reacting to, is one theory of why people can water divine.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
It's a muscle reaction. That I mean, it may not be, but that's a kind of, one accepted theory. But, just give it a go. I mean, take some dowsing rods out, and this time, if you've got a yes for your underground water, just now think of aligning yourself north to south. We're going to do a grid system now. This is really easy to douse. It's called the Hartmann grid, yeah? It's about 2.5 meters apart and 2 meters in one part. But imagine lots of squares. That's going to be your intent. So visualize for one moment with your rods in your hand. I'm going to douse the Hartmann grid. Oh, yes, lots of squares before me. And you're aligned north to south, because this grid flows north to south, east to west. Just start walking ahead of you, north to south, focusing your intent on getting a grid line, asking your rods to show you the nearest grid line, and your rods will cross. You've now got because you cross everything at a right angle in dowsing, you've got the east-west line. Do you see what I mean? You've hit a line. So you could do that. Try dowsing the Hartmann grid. These things are really, really easy to do. And like I said, when I teach people how to douse professionally on Skype courses or, home study with Skype courses, people find these things really easy. It's not difficult. We are natural born dowsers. We really are. Our bodies know what's good for us. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's why if we're in the wrong place, if a kid's in the wrong part of the classroom, if you're in the wrong place where you're sleeping, your body will tell you that you're in the wrong place,
And also, can I just add to that, one of the things that Walter Gray mentioned as well, what he did was, a lot of us have mattresses that are spring mattresses. And for people who are familiar with electronics, springs act as coils, which are amplifiers. And what Walter did is he ordered a feathered mattress from a company in Germany, because he didn't want to, because there was telephone masts around there, those, which were quite dangerous. And what was happening is the coils in the bed were amplifying the signal, which didn't help the situation either. So he went and got a feathered mattress. But talking about dowsing, can you tell the difference between a negative and positive energy? If you happen to be, I know you're doing an intention and somebody says something about maybe electrical energy, what would you, if people wanted to check EMF or a bad negative energy or some kind of electrical energy, what would be your intent? What would you say to check for that?
Well, to begin with, you have to, dowsing is 3 premises, 3 easy premises. And the first one is information dowsing, which is asking a question. Is my house associated with X? Yeah, negative energy, grid lines, whatever. That's information dowsing. Then, after information dowsing, you have to employ directional dowsing. That's using one rod to say to your rod, show me the direction of X, whatever X is. It could be a negative line, it could be whatever. And then you have to be able to follow and find what you're dowsing. That's called tracking. Do you see what I mean? So information douse, you have to ask, is my house associated to X? then you have to say, show me the direction of X, and then you find X. It's that simple. All dowsing is those three premises. So if someone wanted me to start to decode their house, for example, then I would use information dowsing to find out the answer to the question. Then I'd use directional dowsing to find the direction of it. Then I would find it. That's the three main principles of dowsing. And going back to what you were saying about, the metal springs, what a lot of people have now been finding, moving on from that, as well as like sofa metal springs. But if you're in the misfortune of living near a phone mast or a large kind of, electrical substation, and you've got metal gates or metal fencing, it's the same principle. It will carry that signal around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically any form of metal, a good organic wooden fence, or like you said rightly so, a feather mattress, or trying to use. I've got a wooden slat bed.
Yeah. Rather than metal. Yeah. It's just we have to be aware, because we're getting bombarded with all these frequencies. So we have our water meters, our smart meters, our mobile phone masts, our mobile phones. And myself and Steve are very familiar with this technology, because we have a background in it, and we try and educate as much as we can, and have the likes of Walter Graham on the show, and other people, and people like yourself with dowsing. Now, it'd be just one more question for you there. Out of interest, it's funny that you get some houses that suffer paranormal situations, spirits in there. And I was just wondering, maybe these houses also have some kind of ley line or negative line or something related to that may be part of the problem.
Yeah, it certainly is, and there's many master dowsers that have looked into that, which I'll touch on in a moment. But just going back to leys, and we were talking about the metal fencing. I mean, the one good thing you can do in your house, if you do find a Hartmann grid or a curry net, is get your router off it and all electromagnetic equipment. That's very important. Otherwise, it's a double whammy. So going back to the paranormal, there was a master dowser called Tom Lethbridge. He was the father of long-cord pendulum dowsing, and an expert in his field, and he was also an archaeologist, and I think he taught at Cambridge at one point in his vast career. He's very academic. And he looked into quite a few different types of hauntings, and I do a lot of house clearing as well. So I've been involved in a lot of very, very strange and sometimes demonic entities, actually. But Lethbridge noticed that water has memory, doesn't it? All homeopaths, water has memory. So if your house is at a crossing point of streams, can be equally as bad as if it's at a crossing point of leys, because if there's been a tragic circumstance where a lot of emotional energy has been released, a murder or something, really ghastly, the memory field of the water, not necessarily the water per se, but a combination of all of this will hold on to that memory. And where you have like a crossing point of leys or earth energy, you have a kind of pull into the earth, or pull out of the earth. It's like a nodal point. So that can release and contain energy. So quite often above the underground water scenarios I've described, you have a lot of anniversary ghost hauntings. And by that I mean something happened on the 19th of September, 1878, for example, and then people travel down that road, and on the 19th of September, it's like an anniversary, or replay it. It's
like a residual instant, whatever happened at that time.
Yeah. So that's underground water is quite often associated with that type of scenario. Leys quite often crossing points, especially when you get two or more. They could kind of be like a bit of a portal they can kind of be like a pull-up. They can release entities and things and poltergeists, especially if you have, it's often been noticed in research, like large mirrors or a chimney or something like that, a kind of entry point.
Yeah.
So you could always ask the questions like that. But as it's been sort of described by paranormal researchers these days, quite a few of the hauntings are by quite recent departures. So they're not always way back in history, for example. An American I know was investigating quite a bad poltergeist activity. And when you find out the story behind the property, it turned out that was a drug dealer who got horrifically killed by another drug dealer there, and he was now haunting the place.
That's right. It's something that I've an interest in the paranormal, and as you say, it's not always old spirits, they can be new spirits. But listen, Maria, we've reached that time, we have to let you go, but again, a big thank you for coming on the show, much appreciated. Brilliant information, and for people who want to find out more about Maria, I'm going to pass you off to Steve, and Steve's going to get all your details. Thanks again, Maria, for coming on. Steve.
Thanks.
Yeah, great information, Maria. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 because there's so much more ground we could have covered. But we do have links to your websites here, the aveburyexperience.co.uk and esotericcollege.com. We have put those up on both of the chat rooms there, so people will be able to check them out and get some more information. Do you have any other links or outlets where people can find information, YouTube, Facebook, etc.?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Maria Wheatley, and it's just really through the websites, and thanks for mentioning them, and it's been great to be on your show. You guys are so chatty. I felt so relaxed. I've really enjoyed it.
I think we'll have to bring it on the pub crawl. What do you think?
Yes.
We have a virtual pub crawl, and we'll have to bring it on the virtual pub crawl next time. Maybe there'll be a real pub crawl. Maybe we'll do another basis conference and meet you up sometime. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, Maria, thanks a lot for coming on. You've been great information there. And again, we'll have to do a part 2, maybe in the new year. We'll catch up on what you've been doing. But just stay with us there for a minute. We'll just go off to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and people'sInternetRadio.com.
Yeah, we're just discussing Kate Bush there, actually, the man with the child in his eyes. As I just said, I haven't heard that song in a long time, and I know we did play Wow from Kate Bush last week, and what some people may not realise, I know Kate Bush is not everybody's cup of tea, but what some people may not realise is that a lot of the songs she wrote herself when she was a teenager, like 16, 17 years of age. And, the woman is talented.
Very, very, very talented. Again, I just was watching a story and the ability she had when she was young, and what she could play. Some good information. And the fact that we mentioned about the cloud busting song, and that was all about William Reich's son, who wrote a book all about him and his father. Yeah, that was quite interesting. A bit of musical trivia a couple of weeks ago we talked about. Now, the good news is, we've had confirmation from Dr. Tullio Simoncini, or I don't think we can call him doctor anymore because they struck him off because he used a sodium bicarb to heal cancer, to help people heal their cancer. And because Dr. Simoncini, when he asked, how is cancer? What is cancer and can we cure it and all that? And his peers said, oh, don't worry about that, Tullio, don't worry about that. Just know that, take chemo and everything else. So he went off and started investigating cancer. And he realised that cancer was a fungus. And by attacking the cancer using a cannula, a needle directly into the vein or into where the cancer is, and washing the fungus, within a few days, he can clear the actual cancer. Breast cancer, I think he said 6 days, he can actually clear breast cancer in 6 days using a cannula. And basically, because he was healing people with sodium bicarb, they struck him off. So I think he goes now as Professor Tullio Simoncini. But it's great to have him on the show because we've talked about him time and time again about using sodium bicarb for a number of things, about making sure your body's more alkaline rather than acid. And sodium bicarb does that. And loads of people have used it with sodium bicarb, water and molasses or syrup. And basically what happens is you take that drink. Now go and do the research with this, by the way. Don't want people going off doing it. Go and do the research first. But basically what people have done in the past is by using the syrup or the molasses, the actual cancer cells are attracted to the sugar in the molasses or the syrup, and then the actual sodium bicarb attacks the cancer cell, and that's it. That's the kind of the basic science of it. I'm sure there's a lot more. So if we get Dr. Tullio on next week, that's the plan of attack. He said he'd be come on next week. We're going to be talking about that, so it's going to be a great show to tune in on, because myself and Steve, obviously, for a donation of €10, we'll give you a free tub of sodium bicarb. So I'll
leave an autograph.
We leave an autograph, yeah. So for a donation of €10, we can give you a tub of sodium bicarb. It's a sodium bicarb that's not lumpy. That is lumpy, because lumpy. The one that's not lumpy contains aluminium, and you don't want to be having that. And baking soda is not the same thing. There's a chemical difference with baking soda, plus the fact that baking soda contains aluminium as well. There you go. So all the information there. And you know more about this stuff than I do.
Oh yeah, I swim in it, I eat it for breakfast. Yeah, it's good stuff. No, it is. As you say, yeah, the sodium bicarb, you can buy some stuff off the shelf, and if it has aluminium in it, some of them have aluminium to stop it clumping together. It's an anti-something agent. I can't remember what the word is.
Anti-caking agent.
Anti-caking agent, that's it, yeah. So a lot of them use aluminium. If it is aluminium in it, then it's really not worth your while using it. You need the good stuff, and that's the stuff that we have some here. We don't have a large supply, but we do have some. So as Alan said, if you'd like to make a charitable donation to the show of a €10, include your name and address, and we'll pop one out in the post to you.
We have to include postage and packing in that, because obviously it's a bit heavy, so there'll be €10 plus postage and packing, I'm afraid. But look, email us, and then we'll sort out, depending on where you are and all that kind of stuff. We'll have to sort out that. Let us know. Now, yes, Joan, just on the chat room there, Tullio is on next week. So if you have friends or family who are suffering from cancer or anything that, or know people who are, get them to tune in next week and listen to. Now, Dr. Tullio Simoncini is an oncologist, okay? He's a cancer doctor. So he's not only a doctor, he's a cancer doctor. So he knows his stuff. And he knows if you go up to his website, if you go to Google and type in Dr. Tullio Simoncini and go to his website, he'll tell you, you go to, you look on the list to see what cancer you have. And then when you select the cancer, he tells you what you have to do. The last time I went to his website, that's what you did. You put in the cancer that you have, and then he tells you what you need to do to actually attack the cancer. But his website could be changed. But again, we'll find out that information next week. So it's going to be a really good show. But Steve's going to give us a reminder about our what's on our website.
Yes, I am. I thought you were going to say the Open Minds Conference. I might remind you of that too.
Well, we'll do that next week.
Again, as Alan said, if you want to support OYM, we do have some T-shirts and stickers, which can purchase from the website. Just log on to the website there. You will see the links on the left-hand side. You will see one for the OYM shop. It's not a real shop. It's a virtual shop, but you will see some stuff on there. We have books, the books are gone. Sovereign Independence, old Sovereign Independence there with great information. A newspaper that was way ahead of its time. There's some copies of that. The bumper stickers that are always a winner, and a conversation starter, and also we have some CDs there by Alan Carna also.
Now we have to be very careful. You know, we have OYM t-shirts there. Guys, we have to be very, very careful with our marketing. We can't over-market the t-shirts, but apparently, if you do have an OYM t-shirt, apparently the opposite sex, it's a bit like Lynx deodorant. The opposite sex just get severely attracted to you for some reason. I don't know why. And apparently you get superhuman abilities as well. So we've heard the rumor. Anything else?
Yeah. Although we cannot substantiate those claims.
No. Of course not.
Yeah.
Right, okay, we've reached that time. Have a great week. Stay safe. If you have any good information, send it over to us. This is myself, Alan James. Take it easy. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay, stay tuned. Vin is up next on People's Internet Radio. We did speak about grounding and earthing during the interview there with Maria Wheatley. If you want to ground or earth, you can simply kick off your shoes, go out into your back garden, stand there in the grass, have a little bit of a wander around for a few minutes, and that is enough to ground you. As I say, Vin is up next, People's Internet Radio. We're going to do it all again next week. For myself here, Stephen George, sayonara.